Hey there, I'm Julie, and this is the Married to Addiction podcast. If you're here, then you're probably what I call my secret sister. We're in a situation we never asked to be in and fighting a battle we never wanted to fight. We're faith-filled women who are married to an alcoholic, and it affects every inch of our lives. If that sounds like you, then this is a safe place for you to land. Married to Addiction is a faith-based podcast where I help you find the tools and strength you need to navigate your husband's addiction without losing yourself in the process. So please subscribe and tune in as often as you can, because your husband's recovery is important, but so is yours. Hello, and welcome into episode 131 of the Married to Addiction podcast. Today's episode is called When Your Faith is the Only Thing Holding You Together, and Even That Feels Shaky. So I want to talk today about something that I think is one of the most painful and really the most private experiences of this whole journey as the wife of an alcoholic. And that is the moment or even the season when your faith starts to feel like it's slipping. When the woman who has been holding on to God with everything she has through every difficult night and every broken promise and every prayer that seemed to go unanswered, one day she realizes she's not holding on quite as tightly as she used to. And she doesn't really know what to do with that. So if that's where you are right now or where you have been, I want you to know that today's episode is for you. And I also want you to know that what you're experiencing doesn't sever you from your faith. In fact, it might actually be one of the most honest expressions of it. If you've been listening to this podcast for any length of time, you've probably heard me share that at the height of my husband's drinking, my faith felt very shaky every single day. Not just uncertain, but bordering on straight up doubt. I found myself asking questions like, is God actually there? Is he listening? Does he even see what is happening in my home? Because if he does, I didn't understand why he wasn't doing something. So for the first time in my life, I honestly started to question whether God was even real. Before that time, I was not someone who had ever struggled with my belief, and faith had really been the foundation of my life for as long as I could remember. But in the middle of my husband's addiction, which felt so hard, I felt abandoned by God, which left me standing in territory that I'd never stood in before. The most visceral, agonizing memory that I have from that time, and you've probably heard me talk about this, is standing in my shower with the water as hot as I could stand it, completely at the end of myself, screaming out to God out loud, help us, please help us. It wasn't a quiet prayer. It wasn't a composed, organized petition to God. It was literally a guttural scream because it came from the bottom of everything I had left. That's what the end of yourself feels like. And if you've been there, either in your shower or maybe in your car or maybe in the dark at 3 a.m., I see you. And I want you to know that that cry does not represent a lack of faith. It is one of the most honest prayers you will ever pray because it comes from the depths of your soul. There is a real and very specific kind of exhaustion that comes from having to be the spiritual anchor of your home for months or even years. Because that's what many of us have been, whether we chose it or not. As wives of alcoholics, we were placed in that position. We pray for our husbands, we pray for our marriages, we pray for our children, and we feel like we're holding the faith for the whole family together, even though everything around us feels like it's coming apart at the seams. So at some point, after enough unanswered prayers, after enough nights that didn't get better, after enough Sunday mornings where you sat in a pew feeling more alone than you've ever felt, the faith that has grounded you and carried you starts to feel thin, like you're holding on to something, but your hands are so tired you're not sure how much longer you can hold it. That's how I felt. And that's probably how you feel too if you've been in this position for any length of time. Now, I also want to talk about what shaky faith is not, because I think we often read too much into this sometimes. Shaky faith is not the same as lost faith. It's not the same as giving up on God. It's not a sign that you are spiritually weak or that you've done something wrong where your faith is concerned. Shaky faith is what happens when a person who loves God has been carrying something unbearable for a really long time. It's the natural result of praying for something that hasn't happened. It's what it feels like to trust when there's no visible evidence that the trust is even warranted. And here's what I want you to hear. That kind of faith, the shaky, hanging on by a single thread kind of faith, is actually, I think, one of the most profound forms of faith there is, because it would be so easy to let go. But you haven't. The fact that you're still here, listening to this faith-based podcast, still praying even when the prayers feel like they're not going anywhere but the ceiling, still showing up at church even when it feels hollow for you now, still believing even when the belief feels super fragile, that's not weakness, friend. That is one of the most courageous things that a person can do. I also want to name something that I think lives underneath this kind of shaky faith for a lot of women in this situation, and that is the question of whether God is fair. Now, we talked a little bit about this on the last episode too. You've been living for him. You've been trying to do all the right things. You've been trying to be a good wife in spite of what you're dealing with. You're trying to still be a good mother, a good Christian, and your life still looks like this. And somewhere in the most honest parts of your heart, you've probably wondered, is this what I get for following God? Is this my reward for faithfulness? I remember thinking those types of things, and then I felt guilty about thinking them. But this very question is in the Bible. Psalm 73, the whole thing is essentially this question. Because Asaph writes that he nearly lost his faith watching people who didn't live for God seem to have everything, while he suffered. Does that sound familiar? So God is not surprised by this question. He's not offended by it, and he doesn't love you any less for asking those types of things. So if your faith feels shaky today, and if you find yourself also standing in the shower screaming, or lying awake feeling unable to pray because you just don't know what else to say, or sitting in church feeling like the words kind of don't even reach you anymore, I want you to know that you are not alone in this, and you are not failing God. You are simply a woman who's been carrying something extraordinarily heavy, and your faith is bending under the weight of it, which is not the same as breaking, by the way. I also want to make sure you know that the Secret Sister Circle, which is my transformational program for wives of alcoholics, was built exactly for moments like these. Not just to help you understand what you're going through spiritually, but to actually change how you move through it. Because when we have shaky faith and it's left unaddressed, it usually doesn't just stay shaky. What can happen is it can actually quietly erode into something that's much harder to come back from. So the isolation of carrying the spiritual weight alone with nowhere to bring it and no direction on what to do with it can actually end up being one of the most dangerous parts of this journey. In fact, there's a lesson inside the Secret Sister Circle specifically about faith in this process called "What is God doing?" ? Exclamation point. That's what I named it, because that's how we feel. That lesson helps you with exactly what we've been talking about today. What to do when God feels silent, how to keep your spiritual footing when everything around you feels totally unstable, and how to find him again when your prayers feel like they're going nowhere. Understanding why your faith is shaky is one thing, but learning how to stabilize and strengthen it even now, and understanding how to move through this without losing yourself spiritually, that's the kind of work that we do inside of the Secret Sister Circle. So the link to that is in the show notes. I would absolutely love to have you join me there. Right now, there is even a 7-day free trial available, so please take advantage of that. Before I go today, if this episode resonated with you, please make sure that you hit follow so that you never miss one. And I thank you for being here today. I will see you in the next episode. And until then, please take care of you. And that includes your faith, even the shaky parts, especially the shaky parts. Bye for now. Quick question for you before I let you go today. Have you been to the Married to Addiction website? If you haven't, I would love if you would go pay it a visit. It's just marriedtoaddiction.com. And over there, you can see just a lot of different information about my podcast. There is a blog on there. There's some free resources for you. And there's also a few ways that you can actually get some help if you need a little more help and direction and support as you travel this difficult path with your addicted husband. So if you haven't yet, please go visit marriedtoaddiction.com. Thanks so much.